Hey folks, today we're making an addition for kind of giving our ranunculus kind of a bit of a boost here. We're approaching kind of the middle of December, well, at least starting to move that way. And we had, as we talked about in a previous short video, we had some damage to our ranunculus a couple of weeks ago. The plants themselves have kind of made a recovery back in terms of getting reestablished, but they're pretty in a weakened state. We did fertilize them with JADAM liquid fertilizer and gave them a liquid nitrogen fertilizer as well as the grass-based fertilizer. But that was about a week ago that we did that, and now we're going to move on to the next step, which we talked about, is using fermented seawater. So I wanted to talk to you today about how easy it is to make this. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix up a really basic thing. It's called fermented seawater. In a sense, it is slightly fermented, but what we're using is we're using LAB and we're using some FPJ we made last year from blackberry, plus we're using sea salt. And the point of each component is really to overall, when they work together, they will help the plant uptake nutrients better and will enhance a little bit more in terms of green growth of the plant. So the idea is this will be applied to the plant as a foliar spray. So we're only going to make a gallon of it because the whole point is to just spray it on the plants. It's not a soil drench or anything like that. And that's what will work through the leaves of the plants and give the plant minerals. The whole point of the sea salt is that there's 83 different elements in here, micronutrients that will help the plant. The LAB is applied to the surface and as a coating on it will help these nutrients get into the leaves. And the FPJ has biostimulants in it, plus the sugar carrier on it will actually act as a food for the fermentation with the LAB. So it all kind of works together. This is really a very simple formula. If you want the ratios, it's basically we're going to take 1 gram of sea salt per liter of water, which works out to basically creating a dilution of like seawater that you would have diluted 1 to 30. It's the same idea. Once the salt is dissolved in the water, it actually is at a dilution of 1 to 30. We're going to apply the LAB at a dilution of 1 to 700, and the dilution of the FPJ is at 1 to 300. So the whole point of it is that it'll work together kind of in concert after it has a chance to brew in our 1 gallon container for about 2 to 3 days. Now, when we add the material, what it's going to look like is it's not going to look terribly much different. The liquid will have a slight amber look to it, and that's basically the function of the sugar in it. And the material over the next couple of days then will start to develop a cloudy look to it. And once it kind of hits that hazy, whitish look to it, it's ready to go. This is not a solution you can make up in advance and then stick in the fridge, get back to it 2 weeks later. The whole point is you got to, you make it, and when it's good to go, you have to apply it. Think of it as the same thing as like JMS, the JADAM microorganism solution. Once it's brewed up and it's hit its peak, we want to make sure we get it on the plant at its peak. Otherwise, the longer this goes, it becomes anaerobic and it really loses the whole effect of what we're trying to do with the LAB. So it will not be an acidic solution at this level of dilution or this long in terms of its fermentation. It will be right around a neutral pH and shouldn't have any harm to the leaves at all. So it's really easy to make a gallon of it then using the ratios I talked about. What we're going to do is we're going to make roughly, which is less than a teaspoon. It's about, I put a little bit too much in. Okay, there we go. And it's roughly about 3/4 of a teaspoon is what it works out to be. And we'll just add that into the water. Then the LAB, what we're going to do with that is, using our handy dandy measuring things, I'm just rechecking my ratios to make sure I'm right. LAB ends up being 1 teaspoon, not a tablespoon. So it's 1 teaspoon, which is about 5 milliliters for a gallon of water. And that's all there is for the inoculant stage of it. And the last thing we're going to add is the FPJ, which we'll put 2.5 teaspoons in. So it's quite a bit more. That's about 1/2 tablespoon. So if you had I don't have a 1/2 tablespoon measurement, unfortunately. Let me get a towel here to wipe this off. But if you had a 1/2 tablespoon measurement, that's what it works out to be. And this stuff is kind of a really thick. So I'm going to be really super accurate here and assume that this ends up being about 1.5 teaspoons. And it takes a little bit of, maneuvering it around to kind of get it. Looks a little weird. But the whole...
If you're not accurate, is that a problem?
With the FPJ, I think I'm just going to err a little bit on the lesser side. Yeah. But my experience in the past is it's a little more forgiving with the FPJ, but if you put in too much LAB, it kind of races ahead too far too fast. But you want to try to be as close as you can be to just wipe this off here. We'll put a little more in. And this is 1/2 teaspoon. And if I do this right, I'll be approximately. So I'm just going to try to get it at about 1/2, a little bit more than 1/2. So this will be, the combination of the two will be approximately 2.5 teaspoons.
I thought you said tablespoons.
No, it's teaspoons. Everything is teaspoons.
Oh.
Yeah, no tablespoons. The half, if you were, it was 1/2 tablespoon, which is 2.5 teaspoons. So as you can see, the color is kind of an amber color. And this is going to be kept at room temperature away from light. So you don't want to put this in a windowsill or anything like that. The whole point on this is not to introduce other things into it. So we will cover it with a paper towel covering. I'm going to just make sure the materials in the bottom are mixed up. As you can see, there's a little bit of the FPJ that's still at the bottom. And make sure the salt is evenly dissolved in the solution. So it may require a little bit of stirring. And I used Redmond's Pure Ancient Sea Salt, but any kind of sea salt that is not treated with any kind of caking or anything like that.
Is this another one where the water should be non-chlorinated?
Absolutely. Chlorination kills bacteria.
Rainwater,
rainwater's good. Well water, or if you have chlorinated water, if If you brought it out and let it sit, stir it vigorously a bit, let it sit for a day or so, it will end up kind of most of the chlorine will off gas out. But interestingly enough, when you look at the top, you can already see that there's starting to be some activity. One of the things I've noticed about LAB, when you mix it in water, it will tend to give you a few bubbles when you initially start out. So this is the color it looks like today. This is day 1. So mixed it up. It's a nice little amber color.
How many days?
It'll take approximately 2 to 3 days. So what we'll do is we'll check back and show you pictures. The first day, second day, when it's ready, sometime between the second and third day, and then we'll apply it. Some people dilute it. I don't. I apply it straight because the seawater or the sea salt is already diluted. And so the whole idea is we've already got a dilution going, so you don't need to dilute it when you apply it.
So this is just getting minerals and nutrients into the plant to keep it moving forward.
Basically, yeah. Because when you think,
is there a problem with it being in the dead of winter?
well, you're not going to get maybe as fast a response, but the whole reason why we're doing this is we are kind of at a point where the plants have really kind of been abused because the deer came in, they ate the leaves off, they ripped them out of the ground, and so this is kind of like part of the process to help them recover.
Would you normally do this if that hadn't happened?
I wouldn't do it at this time. I do the fermented seawater probably closer to a month before they start to bloom. And then I would mix that as well at the application time with water-soluble calcium phosphate as a foliar feed. But yeah, at the lowest level of light time this time of year, the whole idea is what we're trying to do is just not really trying to stoke them into, this rapid growth for the sake of growth. We're trying to get them so they get some leaves back on them so that they can start photosynthesizing. So let's check back in a couple of days. We'll check back every day, and then we'll get back together and talk about it at application time, how we're going to deal with it.